Hello and welcome. I'm conducting an experiment and I want you to join me. A couple of weeks ago, a package arrived. It was full of treasures, but the biggest one of all was this beautiful box of soft pastels. Thank you, Lori. I've never drawn with soft pastels before, but I do have some experience with oil pastels and a lot of experience with charcoal. So my understanding is that these guys should be pretty much like charcoal, but in color. So for my very first ever trial with chalk pastels, I decided to go big. Don't even know if that fits in the screen. Big. Let's see what happens. And the experiment begins. I've had this character in my head for a few months now, and I've been waiting for a perfect way to bring her to life. She's a young princess who's very pampered and protected, and she's a dancer, but she dreams of being a warrior. I want to depict a moment during her dance where she's fantasizing about swinging a sword instead of a fan. This may just be the perfect opportunity to draw her. The paper that I chose for this is significantly larger than what you usually see me draw on, and it also has more tooth to it. Tooth is the texture of the paper. When you run your fingers over the surface and it feels smooth or rough, that's tooth. Higher tooth, more texture, is usually better for media that are powdery, like charcoal or chalks. I don't expect to be able to get super fine detail here like I do with pencils on smooth paper, but I do expect to get nice color gradients and some awesome texture effects. I suspect this will look more like a painting than a drawing. As always, I start with a light sketch in graphite and charcoal. Actually, I spent nearly an hour working out all the little details of her face and hair. I don't really know what to expect from soft pastels, so I want to get as much important information down as possible. I want her head to be pretty much the only part of this composition that will be in focus. For the rest of it, I want to create an illusion of movement, and also suggest that it is in fact a fantasy and not a real scene by adding some abstraction and blur effect. I plan to have a lot of large brush strokes. I don't think there's any point in drawing those out though. I suspect they will look more natural if I freehand them later on. Unfortunately, I only have an hour or so to draw every day, so this may take a while. I couldn't stay away. I have another 30 minutes that I can steal before dinner. Let's try those colors. This is surprisingly more difficult than I expected. Maybe I made the face too small or put too much detail in it. The pastels are definitely very cool and the colors are clean and vibrant, but they're so powdery and unruly. I'm being very timid with them. This will take some getting used to. The pastel sticks are too crumbly to sharpen, so I can't get a proper tip to draw all the lines of the eyes and the lips. I'm using pencils here and there, and I'm trying to use Q-tips for blending, which usually works on charcoal, but not so much here. I hope the rest of the page isn't going to be this tedious. Okay, the hair part was cool. I discovered that blending with the pastel itself creates a much nicer effect. I also discovered that I can use very light colors over very dark colors without losing pigment. That's awesome. Okay, so last night didn't go exactly as planned. These guys don't behave anything like charcoal. So I'm gonna switch up my strategy. Working on the kimono, I started to use pastel sticks directly on the page, mixing colors as I paint. I was still trying to use my Q-tip for blending, but finally gave up on that since it was just taking pigment away. I really like that I can layer any color on top of any color. It's almost like painting digitally. Literally, any color. Pale blue over deep burgundy? No problem. White over black? Go for it. This opens up a whole new world of opportunities for this project. I used the light over dark trick to create the silk effect on the sleeves, and also in adding all the little cherry blossoms to the fabric design. Drawing all these tiny details with a pencil and then filling it in with these chalky pastels would never have worked. Layers are definitely the key to using this medium. By the time I got to the edge of the sleeve, I was feeling a lot more comfortable with the chalk sticks. I changed my whole posture and my movements. I moved my arms more freely and from the shoulder, making long passes with the whole edge of the stick, standing of course, and using both hands apparently. This is completely different from pencil drawing. This is fun. I'm starting to get a feel for it. Alright, today's the really fun part. I have 2 whole hours to play and it's time to add the splatter. I was hoping to leave the background blank, but I see now that the edges of my character are too rough against the naked paper. So I filled in the background mostly white, but with some light pigment. Making the background the same texture as the rest of my character also allowed me to create nice motion blur and atmospheric perspective effects, like on some longer strands of hair and on the sword. The splatter part was super cool. Glad I did the background first. That allowed for some nice clean edges on the blood that I could later smear in any direction that I wanted. While Q-tips didn't work for blending, I discovered that feathers did. I have a bunch of feathers laying around the studio, and I picked a really nice soft one from my peacock and a more rigid one from one of the local raptors. Yep, I have a pet peacock. His name is Kevin. I used the feathers as large dry brushes to sweep across the whole composition, adding more motion blur and suggesting movement and direction. I also used the feathers to brush off all the excess powder that apparently piles up on the page after you make just a few strokes with the pastel sticks. Man, this stuff is so powdery. Once you start working with it, it's like working in a cloud of chalk dust. There's pink powder everywhere. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a great way to just let go and create. We can get so obsessed with our sharp pencils and perfect lines that we forget how to properly finger paint. Once you get into this, it's actually very therapeutic. There isn't actually that much left to do. I only need to add some black brush strokes and we should be done. Leaving the broad black parts to the very end was the best decision that I made on this piece. It worked out perfectly. The black was just as powdery as the colors, so I had to be careful in my feather brushing. I made sure only to brush off the powder in the direction of my actual black lines. This way I didn't contaminate my beautifully saturated pink and red layers with black powder. This was awesome. I can officially say that I love soft pastels, and I will be making a lot more cool art with them. Let's go over what I learned in the past 4 days. Going big was definitely the way to go. High tooth paper, also a win. The texture worked out beautifully. Doing a full, high detailed outline of the character before I started, not a complete fail, but definitely not necessary. A vague markup of where everything needs to be would have been more than enough. Didn't need to spend a whole hour on that. Covering the entire page, even the white of the background, with an even layer of pigment, win. Trying to keep my room clean, fail. These guys are messy, but cleanup is easy and painless. The powder didn't actually stick to anything but paper, and a quick dusting returned my studio to its normal state without leaving pigment on everything. So don't let the powder intimidate you, just have fun and get messy. Not smudging what I've already drawn was a tricky part. Be very careful not to smudge what you've already drawn. Use a soft brush or a feather to gently brush off the powder. Layering, big win. Any color on top of any color, you can't ask for more than that. That alone makes me want to use this medium over any other. Level of detail. So far, with my limited experience, I would say medium to low. I would not choose this medium to do a super detailed pattern, for instance. But for images that are more on the impressionist side, it's perfect. So landscapes, clouds, smoke, splatter, movement, water, mood over detail. Color saturation. Excellent. These colors are vibrant, clean, they're perfect. Blending. Can be tricky at first, but mixing color directly on the page works beautifully. And for the final treat, I have a secret to share with you. This is something that I learned years ago when working in charcoal. Powdery media never really bind to paper completely. This means that if I want to hang this up on my wall, it will forever shed powder onto the floor. Negligible amounts of powder, but nevertheless, after several years, probably won't look so good and it will get smudged and whatever. So to lock the powder in, I used a simple transparent spray paint. It basically works like varnish. You can also use hairspray. Now, if you do this, do it outside and spray from a safe distance and from above. If you put your spray paint too close to the surface, the air blast itself will distort the powder effects that you have on the page. What you want is to create a mist that will gently land onto the page. Let it dry a few minutes, then mist it again. It will lock the powder in nicely. You'll be able to touch the page. Thanks again, Lori Gregory, for this box of treasures. I love them. I've put the link to this exact brand of pastels in the video description below. I'm not sponsored by these guys, and this was literally my first time using this stuff. But I absolutely loved it, and I highly recommend that you give them a shot as well. If you like this drawing, a high-resolution digital version of it will be available for free on Patreon for my Featherwolves tier. Featherwolves get to pick a digital copy of an art piece every month, and there's a lot of other fun stuff happening on Patreon. You should check it out. I'm always excited to hear your stories and experiences, so please feel free to share those in the comments below or in my Facebook group Talm, The Art of Lisa Mitrokhin. All of my video material comes from your requests, so don't be shy. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to give it the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you don't already. I don't think a lot of people realize, but this thing that pops up here, usually, is actually a button that you can click on. Very easy way to subscribe. I'm Lisa Mitrokhin. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.